Why are those people, young people, involved in Antifa? And I thought, I know who I'm going to call. I'm going to call my friend Dr. Jantz. He is the therapist and founder of aplaceofhope.com. I've known the good doctor for 20 years. Both of us had darker hair back then. You have written numerous books. Individuals from around the world fly to Edmonds. They go to the center. They meet with your therapists. I'm sure some of them get the good fortune of talking to you as well. And you handle all sorts of problems. Some people that are addicted to drugs and alcohol and gambling and addicted to pain. You have studied the human psyche for years and years and years. And I don't think anybody that I know does a better job of sort of breaking down what motivates action. So the big question for you, Doctor, is what do you think is behind all of this anger that would cause somebody to dress all in black, go out there and throw rocks at police? Just armchair this one for me. What do you think?
You got it. Good to be with you today, John. One of the things that we're seeing more and more, and we're concerned about our 12 to 17-year-olds too, because they're getting set up and kind of brought into this flow of what you're calling anger. And there is significant anger, but I'm going to use the term affinity anger. And what I mean by this is I can join a group, I can have belonging, I can feel powerful because anger is powerful, and I can do things, and apparently there's not many consequences for me doing things. Then I feel more powerful.
Yeah.
There's a part of this that can be somewhat addictive. Okay, my next opportunity to go out and be, quote, angry. But I'm angry in a sense, and I'm powerful because I'm with others. It's my affinity group. And it meets that huge need that we all have, the need for belonging, even though it's in an unhealthy way.
So it's not really about, because you could pick any one of the protests that they show up at,
yes,
for this or that or this or that. It's really not about the protests. That's not because if you talk to them, they might not really have much knowledge of it. So it's really just about wanting to be part of a group and feeling as if they have worth.
That sense of powerfulness, and that this is an area of my life that I get attention, I get reward, and it's powerful. And also there's some risk taking. I can take some risk, and I can do some things that I wouldn't normally be able to do, and apparently I won't get in trouble.
Yeah. Okay. So then inside that group, the kid that throws the rock at the cop obviously moves up in the hierarchy, right? And then the one that decides to up the ante and set something on fire, where then they get credit for that activity as well.
You're even more powerful. Yes. And it's kind of the higher the risk, the greater the acknowledgement, the greater the power. And it is addictive. And you said it so well. It doesn't always matter what the cause is.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we don't even know what the cause is, but I want to be a part of this.
Right. So social media has allowed this group to gather, much like fly paper. You hang it over a windowsill, and then within 15 minutes, you're catching more and more flies with it. So social media allows the group to be formed, and then allows the group to be able to share ideas and stuff. So say 30 years ago, you didn't have this. But I was looking up, I just typed into the Googleating machine about young Americans are lost, right? So here's a headline. The young Americans of today are the lost generation, thinking and doing the lost generation. You know when this was written? 1936. And then if you look, 1960, 1963, 64, 68, the lost generation 1990, it comes up every single time. Right. So this has been something that's been talked about in mainstream culture of analyzing through media, the lost generation. But this particular generation, I guess, because when you inject social media in there, they can form quickly and have a place of belonging.
And social media can be the fuel. It is fueling it. And I can send something out, and I'm creating more and more gasoline for that fuel. Absolutely. But we also need to remember that the number one diagnosis in our country right now is anxiety. So that's above all others. Pre-pandemic, it was depression. But we have a generation of very anxious young people, anxious kids. That's why I say I'm really concerned about the 12 to 17-year-olds, finding who their place. But anxiety is high. And again, we had a period during COVID, pandemic craziness, where we were having so many prescriptions written for anti-anxiety medications that we actually had, quote, a supply chain shortage. Now, that's a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
But that has continued. So if I can be a part of something, I'm in the club, and I can, when I hide my face, I'm even more powerful.
Do you remember back in the 70s and 80s, kids were joining cults? I remember in our family, we had a friend whose kid ran off and joined a cult, and then they hired these like cult breaker guys that would in there and kidnap them, and then they would put them in these hotels and then try to deprogram them. So in a way, let's say these kids have joined a cult in a way, not the traditional cult that we think of from the 70s, early 80s. But if some parent were to come to you and say, we got my kid, he's 18 years old, he's involved in all of this stuff, and he comes over to you, Dr. Jantz, over there at the center in Edmonds, where would you begin to help get that kid out of, quote unquote, the cult situation that I'm giving you right now? Yeah.
Well, one of the things is they do have a huge need for belonging. And that means I have to give up my friends. I also risk ridicule and rejection if I leave my group. I'm in the club now. So if I have to leave that's a progress. And I may fear for myself. They may come after me. So that's also a possibility. So the first thing I've got to identify is, first of all, we have a lot of undiagnosed mental health issues. Okay. And I really do want to know mental health. What's going on? Where has there been issues that need to be addressed? Is this kid full of anxiety, depression? And the big thing we're seeing right now is apathy. No hope for my future, so it doesn't matter. So I've got to give that kid a new direction, a new sense of hope that their future does matter.
Yeah. I guess the other part of it is we keep going back, then prior to the kid losing hope, what is the parent supposed to do with, say, a 12-year-old? Because this stuff doesn't just happen overnight. There's early signs of this before they decide they're going to throw a rock at a cop, right? So what are some of the early signs that parents look for to determine, my kid's starting to go that way? And how does the parent intervene and still be a parent and give the kids some autonomy so they can begin to grow up?
No, great question, and so important. Well, one of the things is there's the traditional things we look at. How are they doing in school? Are they even in school? So is there academic failure? Are they isolating? Is most of the time spent with, something in their ears?
Yeah.
Yeah. And also are we seeing them online all the time? And then I'm also going to look, what's going on at night? Some of the most active times for social media for that age group's about 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. And so, so they're depriving sleep, there's sleep deprivation, and all this adds up. So I'm going to be looking at what's the kid, what are they eating? Are they eating? What are they drinking? So I really want to keep that relationship with my kid, even though it's a huge struggle. So I always tell a parent, keep the bridge there. We don't want to burn the bridge with our kid. There may be some things that are really alarming and really scary, and I get that.
Yeah.
But we also need to understand, stay in relationship. But a third party, a mentor, somebody that can enter into our kid's life and have time with them, they're going to listen more to that mentor or that other relationship that's a positive than they are with you as a parent.
Right, because that's part of the natural process of maturing and moving away, right? That you reject the parent, but then you're into that sort of free flow area where you can go in either direction. But a mentor, and how do they go about finding the mentor? Is it through school or through somebody else that's a little older than them that might be on a better track?
Well, it usually is somebody that's a little bit older. Early on, I have two sons, and so early on, when they were even junior high-ish, we began to establish mentor relationships. And so And a mentor is somebody that you would esteem your kid to be like, and they're trustworthy, and they have true, sincere interest. And I think it is a real challenge these days to find a mentor. But remember, don't give up. There are organizations and even church and different options where we can find a positive influence. The kids are going to go with where they feel the most acceptance and where they feel the most belonging. And so that's a strong force to turn them another direction.
Yeah. Dr. Jantz, I remember one time, this was when my kids, so this was 12 years ago. Yes. And I ran into you and I asked you about the cell phone. And this was your advice you gave me. You give advice to so many people, but you said to me, let them know that the phones will go in a basket at 7:30. You say to them, okay, guys, you have a half hour more on the phone, and then I'm collecting the phones. The phones go in a basket. The basket goes in mom and dad's room at 7:30. You don't get the phone again until the next day. And here's your other bit of advice, which we followed as well. At any time, the deal is if you want to pay for your own phone, that's fine. But if we pay for the phone, the contract, we drew out a contract. You had us do a contract, and the kids signed it, and it said, we are allowed to pick up your phone at any time, and we are allowed to go through your phone. And if we want to know, who is this person? Why are you texting them? What is their relationship to you? And what do you know about that person? So they knew at any time we could get in there and ask, who's this guy? For Charlie, my daughter, or, Rye wasn't having any problems like that. And they knew. So they were self-policing because they knew that we were over-policing with them. And then we noticed that they slept better and they did better because the phones were not in the rooms. They weren't under the covers at 1 o'clock in the morning texting somebody.
Exactly.
We locked them down hard, and it wasn't that big of a deal because when they went to argue with us, we said, okay, you pay $110 a month for the phone. It's all yours. Go ahead. And I kept thinking, oh, my God, if they get a job and get their own phone, we're going to lose that power. But I thought that was great advice. It still holds up today, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And some of this is age dependent.
Yeah.
So, and one of the things we did at meal times when we were all together, they had to give us no devices at the table. There was one exception. In our home, it was Thursday evening. It was called digital dinner. And I told them they could bring their device to the mealtime, and I wanted them to show me what's new things, what's the apps, what's going on. Show me this one dinner each week. It was digital dinner where I learned how they were spending time and let them show me. So I didn't cut off and say, this is bad all the time, but other times the devices could not be at the dinner table.
Wow. Did that work?
Yeah, because then they would just share what they're excited about. And then I had a chance just to ask questions. It was not my wife's favorite evening of the week because it was all the cell phones out at dinner time. Yeah. But it was a great learning time, and it was the only time.
I have a feeling that was also pizza night. Is that right?
It probably was. Yeah.
Dr. Jantz, I appreciate all the work that you do, the lives that you save over there, founder of placeofhope.com, and so easy to be able to get that help and that help as well. I know you're right over there in Edmonds. My best to your wife, to the kids as well. And I thanks so much for spending some time in it and giving us some insight as to why people join these groups and then feel the power to be able to assault police and set things on fire. It doesn't give us the answers, but just gives us a better roadmap of where they are in their life.